Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the process where we're going to be getting buckets for the December 7th, 2016 NBA slate. My name is Stephen Porter. You can find me on Twitter with 10 game options. Dive right in. Force meets an immovable object, kind of in that 93 to 95 points per 100 possessions to start the year, and now they're sliding back to about 100. But if you take a look at their starters, they've still been posting defensive efficiencies in the mid 90s. They'll go for the Clippers game tonight. So definitely like Clay, cash and or tournaments. I think he's a reasonable cash target. I probably won't go there just because there's maybe better floor plays. But like I said, I really expect Clay to kind of come in towards the upper range of his outcomes in this game. I think he's got a really easy individual matchup. I expect him to find efficiency. He's going to see some serious volume. I wouldn't be surprised to see him put up another 28 to 30% usage rate in this game. So, really like Clay tonight. Steph Curry and Durant are both posting usage rates in that same kind of like 27 to 28 range as Clay. I think I'd rather play Chris Paul points per dollar than Steph Curry. I mean, Steph can always get it going, but like I said, I just think it's going to funnel away from him a little bit um, tonight. So I'm not really looking at him a whole lot. I mean, you could play him in tournaments, but I won't play him in cash games, especially in a game stack. You could play him. Kevin Durant, tough matchup with Luke Richard-Mbah-a-Moute, but Kevin Durant's kind of maybe matchup proof here. I don't know if I'm going to go to him in cash because there's a bunch of other small forward plays that I really like, but I think he's very viable in a game stack, definitely a tournament target. Um, Draymond Green only seeing a 15% usage rate over the last five. I mean, I think like I said, they're really hitting their stride here on offense, and they are well aware that they are going to be the most efficient when they get the ball into Clay, Steph, or Kevin Durant's hands. Draymond should not be really shooting at all unless he's getting easy looks at the rim, which is certainly a thing that can happen, but he's best used as a facilitator, so he's not shooting a whole lot. Don't like to play him on most nights because of the low usage, but in this matchup, he always brings his best effort against the Clippers. I think he could play 36, 38 minutes. I think he's a very legitimate triple-double candidate here. Probably going to go to Paul Millsap in cash over him, who I will get to later. But if you wanted to play him in cash, if you really like the spot, I could understand. Definitely think he's, again, viable in a game stack here. So favorite play, also need to mention Andre Iguodala. This is probably a game where he's going to see a little bit of a bump in minutes and usage. Usually plays a little more and gets a little more involved in the tougher matchups for Golden State. So I think he is at least mildly interesting at 3.5K. If you really want to save the salary, I could see playing him in cash, but I think he's more viable in kind of like a game stack. As a tournament play. So I really like Clay here. I think he's a cash and or tournament play. Same thing with Blake and Chris Paul. And then obviously Steph, Durant, Draymond, Iguodala. And I guess if you're reaching a little bit, Jamal Crawford are in play as well. Moving on to the next game. It's kind of, again, it's an interesting slate. There's 6 clear targets here, all with a total over 214, and I think they could all end up being the highest scoring game on the night. So with respect to that Golden State and Clippers game, we've got to kind of project the production from these other 5 games and see if we can get a little more efficiency out of our salary cap with targeting other guys. And this next game is one of my favorites to target. It's going to be the Denver Nuggets, 4.5-point road favorites, traveling to visit the Brooklyn Nets. Total is 223, so only 2.5 points off of the Warriors and Clippers. The Warriors and Clippers are more efficient offenses, but I mean they're both pretty good defenses, so it's kind of that could turn into a little bit of a defensive struggle. But one thing we know is not going to happen in the Denver and Brooklyn game is that it's not going to be a defensive struggle. Both of these teams are very bad on defense. Brooklyn is one of the worst in the league, 109 points per 100 possessions. Denver's not far behind, 106.5 points per 100 possessions. Neither of these teams is crazy efficient offensively, but I think they can really get it going in this matchup. this just kind of projects to me as a really high-paced, no defense, lots of shots, lots of scoring, plenty of probably offensive rebound chances here for both teams. Both teams are over 101.5 in pace. I really like this game. I think there's going to be a ton of points. If I was going to bet on which of these games would have the most points scored on the night, this is the one that I would want to target. Let's start on the Denver side of the ball. Since Will Barton's come back from his ankle injury, he is leading the team with a 26.6% usage rate in 34 minutes a game. I think he is another great target. His price has come up a little bit, kind of to where we should have been paying for him over the last couple games. Still think he's really viable in cash and/or tournaments. Should see mid-30s minutes. Think the mid-20s usage is going to be there, and I think his efficiency could even trend up a little bit. Certainly came up a little bit last night in the Philly, or 2 nights ago in the Philly game, and we saw what he did. He put up 43 Draftkings points. I think a similar output is a very reasonable expectation in this game, and if he gets over 40, you're going to be really happy with rostering him, so I'm really on him in cash and/or tournaments. There's going to be value in the 3 guards that Denver runs, but it's just tough to peg on any given night which of them is actually going to play the minutes and see the shots. Jamal Murray over the last 3 games with Will Barton back in the lineup is actually leading the guard rotation in usage at 21.6. Moutier has been at 20.4, and Jameer Nelson is at 16.7. They're just begging you to play Moutier with his price right now. He's only 4.9K on DraftKings, but I'm probably not going to go there. I can't deal with the floor of his shot efficiency. I mean, he's a threat to go 1 out of 10 any given night and just not play at all down the stretch in favor of Jameer Nelson and/or Jamal Murray. And I don't mind Isaiah Whitehead as a defender. He's not a bad athlete. He's not a great scorer, but I think he can kind of body up with Moutier and keep him away from the rim for easy looks. So I don't like Moutier tonight. So I definitely think the usage and minutes will probably funnel towards Nelson or Murray. I think they're both viable on FanDuel, where they're both super cheap. Jameer Nelson's pretty expensive on DraftKings at 4.8K, so I don't know that he's a cash target carrying probably like a 15 to 18 point floor, but I think he could get you to like 35, 40 points if he sees mid-30s and sees some efficiency, which is certainly a reasonable expectation here. So I definitely think he's a tournament target, especially in game stack. I probably wouldn't play him in cash. There's other guys on the slate that we'll get to that are probably better bets there. But maybe on FanDuel I could see it because he's just so cheap. I think he's 4.4K on FanDuel. But again, probably not something I'm going to do, but definitely a tournament target because I think there's a little bit of a ceiling there, and I don't know how owned he'll be. Jamal Murray, same kind of thing. Definitely a tournament target. Can't trust him in cash, but we've seen his ceiling before. I think that's going to be capped a little bit because Will Barton is going to handle the ball a lot, which Jamal Murray was doing plenty when he kind of had that like 3-game stretch where he was scoring in like the mid-30s every game. But I think he could see plenty of shots and see some efficiency here and give you like 30 DraftKings points. So definitely a tournament target. I'm probably not going to play Moutier if I'm playing either of the two. It's going to be Murray or Nelson. Wilson Chandler and Danilo Gallinari on the wing is another kind of situation that's hard to peg right now. Danilo's usage has been pretty light this year. There's just a lot of mouths to feed with Denver between the 2 big guys, all the guards. Wilson Chandler playing well off the bench. He trended up in the last game against Philly. He's been about 17 or 18% usage on the season. He saw 22.4 in the last game. I can see that happening again in this game because it's another really nice matchup. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson is maybe a little bit of a deterrent, and I'm really not too interested in playing Gallinari either way, so I think he's more of a tournament target, but I think he gets you to 40 DraftKings points again. I think it's within his range of outcomes. Wilson Chandler is probably just too expensive with the floor that we're seeing, but I mean, I could see him having a nice game in this spot, definitely a tournament target, but probably not somewhere I'm going to go. And then Nikola Jokic is questionable in this spot. If he would play, I wish he was a little cheaper after not playing in a couple of games, because I think he could have a good game in this spot if he played. If he doesn't play, it's kind of a tough matchup for Yusuf Nurkic in the pick and roll with Brook Lopez. Brook is not really going to roll to the basket. He's picking and popping on most of those opportunities, and I don't know that Yusuf Nurkic has the agility to kind of get out to Brook and then recover against him driving to the hoop. Not that like Brook is super agile himself, but I don't know what to expect with Yusuf, because I really want to target Yusuf. If we can get 25 to 30 minutes out of him, I think he's pretty much a bet in this a good bet in this matchup to go over 1 DraftKings point per minute. He only needs to get you about 25 to pay it off today, so I think he's a strong target. There's just other center targets that I'm probably going to go with, so I'm not going to use him in cash, but I think he's a really strong tournament target because I think he's carrying a really strong ceiling here. Brook Lopez doesn't rebound at all, so if he kind of gets it going, kind of sees his minutes trend up to like 25, 30, I think he can give you like 40, 45 DraftKings point ceiling in this matchup, like a 14 and 14 with a handful of defensive statistics kind of line here. So I'm definitely interested in using him in tournaments. Probably stack him up with like Will Barton and then bring it back on the other end with a couple guys from the Nets. But cash target from Denver Nuggets, definitely going to be Will Barton here. Definitely interested in him in tournaments as well. I could see playing Jamal Murray, Jameer Nelson, or Danilo Gallinari. I probably won't touch Mudiay or Chandler, and I think Nurkic is a pretty high ceiling tournament play as well at center. Coming back on the other end for Brooklyn, the big three for them for usage is going to be Sean Kilpatrick. He's been in the mid to upper 20s on most nights. Bojan Bogdanovic has actually been kind of around 23 to 26 on most nights. I think he's maybe an underrated play in this game. Only 4.3K. I could definitely see him coming in towards his ceiling in this really nice matchup. He could give you like 30, maybe 34, 35 DraftKings points if everything really goes well. Probably has a floor of about 20 to 22 points. Not sure he's the best cash target, but I think he's at least interesting in tournaments and/or game stacks. And then Brook Lopez has been putting up usage around 22 to 30 on most nights. I think Brook could really see a really strong game here. They're kind of using him in the post a little bit more to facilitate over the last couple games. Got a good look at him against the Wizards in the last game, and his assists have kind of ticked up a little bit. He's got 11 in the last 2 games. Never going to rebound. You can kind of project him for like 4 or 5 rebounds in this game. But if he gets 5 assists, scores 25 points, gives you a couple blocks, we know he's going to hit a couple 3 balls probably. I think he's a reasonable bet for 40 to 45 with maybe a ceiling of 55 DraftKings points here. I think it's tough to know where the floor is with him on any given night, but I feel pretty comfortable with him getting you at least like 33 DraftKings points in this matchup. He needs 38 to pay off the salary. I think Brook Lopez is definitely a strong tournament target, really strong game stack with Will Barton, and I think he's a reasonable cash target. Again, there's just so many centers tonight that I don't know if I'll end up going there, but if you wanted to play Brook Lopez, I think it's very viable, and I definitely want to have some tournament shares of him because he's got a really nice ceiling in this matchup. And like I said, coming into this, I want to have a lot of pieces of this game, so I want to grab some Will Barton, definitely some Brook Lopez, and then maybe even play like Sean Kilpatrick or Bojan Bogdanovic. Speaking of Kilpatrick, I don't think he's the strongest cash target because there's just so many really good shooting guard plays tonight. I'd probably just rather find the 200 extra to get Will Barton here. But in a game stack, you can play Kilpatrick at shooting guard, bump Barton down to the small forward, play Brook Lopez, and maybe even bring it back with like Nurkic or Jamal Murray, Danilo Gallinari, something like that. I just think this game is so stackable because there's no defense going to be played, really going to get up and down. 2 other guys to mention for Brooklyn, Trevor Booker, 17.1% usage rate over the last handful. I always like Booker when you can project him to have a bunch of rebounding success because his usage usually ticks up a bit when he gets the ball in his hands on the offensive glass or defensive glass. certainly capable of running the break. But Denver's a really strong rebounding team at 53.7. And actually, one guy I didn't mention is Kenneth Faried. I think Kenneth Faried's an interesting tournament target because his game matches up so well with Trevor Booker. So I think he could kind of see 25 to 30 minutes here and really pay off his 5K price tag. Wouldn't trust him in cash. Can't trust the front court minutes for the Nuggets, but he's a guy I could see having a ceiling game with really low ownership. But yeah, Trevor Booker, I'm probably not going to play him just because I don't think this projects well for him rebounding wise. And when he's not going to rebound, I don't really want to play him. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is somebody that I'm a little interested in as a punt. Just because of the increased offensive efficiency I think that we'll see from Brooklyn here. He's coming off an injury. He's only seen mid-20s for minutes in the last couple of games. But he's seen a little bit of usage. Could definitely tick up here in this matchup. I think he's a reasonable punt, especially in a game stack. Probably not gonna play him in cash. I'd probably rather go to like Iguodala or something like that at the price point. But just somebody that needs mentioning as a guy who could maybe get up to maybe upper 20s, because he could probably see a little bit of 4 time if Wilson Chandler or Danilo Gallinari play the 4 and kind of kick Booker off the court there. So I just think he's at least mildly interesting for tournaments. I think the strongest cash play from Brooklyn is probably Brook Lopez. And then the next 2 guys I'd be targeting are going to be Bojan Bogdanovic or Sean Kilpatrick. But I think both of them are more tournament targets. So really love Will Barton and Brook Lopez as tournament stacks tonight, though I think they could both really trend towards their ceilings in this matchup. Moving on to the next game, we have the Los Angeles Lakers on the road to face the Houston Rockets. Rockets are 13.5 point favorites here. Total is 222.5. I don't think this spread is really off at all. I think Houston can probably run away from the Lakers here. I like where they're trending. They're playing really, really good basketball right now. The Lakers aren't. The Lakers have only been in the last couple games because Lou Williams just keeps losing his mind and having incredible offensive efficiency. I think it makes a lot of sense for Houston to put Patrick Beverley on Lou Williams in this matchup and kind of keep him from getting off. I'm not too interested in Lou Williams here. He's definitely not a cash play for me. I think people will be on him in cash. I'm not going to do it. There's a bunch of shooting guards that I'm really into. Just mentioned Will Barton. I'd way rather get to Will Barton in cash. But certainly a tournament target because of the ceiling that he keeps flashing over and over again. I'm going to bet against it in most spots. I mean, I might stack him up with Harden once because I think if Lou Williams can have a good enough offensive game to keep the Lakers in this matchup, I think Harden can really blow the top off. But I'm not on it for cash at all. I think probably the most attractive target here in this matchup is Julius Randle for the Lakers. Love targeting Ryan Anderson. Ryan Anderson is not a very good defender, not great on the boards. So I think Julius Randle could get over in that matchup. Not going to play him in cash. Too expensive. I think he's a reasonable tournament target, especially in a game stack, though. Jordan Clarkson is probably a nice tournament pivot off of Lou Williams. Their usage is usually directly tied to each other. So Lou Williams he's had I think like a 42 usage rate in the last game. If he would be kept down in the 20 to 22 range, I think Clarkson could trend up towards 30 and maybe give you like 30 to 35 fantasy points. So I think he's an interesting tournament pivot. Not a guy I'm like really, really interested in playing at all, but worth a shot possibly if you want to leverage off of Lou Williams and or stack the game. More interested in Houston's guys. James Harden is not going to be a play for me tonight. He's too expensive. I mean, you got to love the matchup, but Harden's usage trends down a little bit when they're blowing a team out. I don't think he'll have to do a lot for them to win this game. Like I said, the only way I can see him really kind of inching toward his ceiling is going to be if Lou Williams just loses his mind. So I think those two are a good stack in tournaments. I want to be going elsewhere in shooting guard tonight in cash. There's just, I think, stronger point per dollar projections, and I don't want to waste that much salary when I think Harden could kind of come in with like a 50 fantasy point performance tonight. With that said, though, I think that makes the secondary guys for Houston a lot more interesting. Guys like Ryan Anderson, even Patrick Beverly, Trevor Ariza's playing pretty well, and Clint Capella. It's kind of hard to tell where the usage is going to go any given night between these guys, because usually it's going to be Harden, 33 up to 40% usage. But if he trends down to like 28-30 in this matchup, somebody's got to go up. Could definitely see it being Ariza. I think Ariza could kind of have his way with Brandon Ingram here. I like Brandon Ingram a lot, but he's a young, inexperienced guy. I think Ariza could kind of find himself in some good spots on the court, seeing some open shots, maybe some easy backdoor cuts, that kind of thing, leading to some high efficiency field goal attempts. Can always play well defensively and put up rebounding numbers. So I think Ariza's, I can't trust Ariza in cash, but I definitely think he's a good tournament target. Kind of same thing with Ryan Anderson. Hard to trust him in cash. I think there's probably better floor plays, but you got to like him in the matchup. His usage is always is really low. He's been efficient in a couple games lately, but he's still struggling to get over like 16 or 17% usage. So I'm not too aggressively targeting him. But I can see him as a tournament play. Eric Gordon, definitely in play here. He's usually the second guy in usage for Houston. He's been about 25 in the last handful of games. Could see that tick up a little bit if Harden kind of just chills and doesn't do a whole lot. Only 5.3 on DraftKings. Think he can get you anywhere from like 25 up to about 40 DraftKings points. Only needs about 32 to pay it off. So if he comes in right in the middle of his range of outcomes, you're going to be happy. And I think he could certainly trend up towards his ceiling in this matchup. So I think he's a legitimate cash and or tournament play. He's probably the strongest points per dollar play from Houston. If Houston would run the Lakers off the court here, which, like I said, I think is a reasonable expectation, I kind of like Sam Decker. I like Sam Decker as a player. He's seeing increased minutes in usage off the bench. And I think he could get anywhere from like 22 to 28 minutes if Houston would really get away with this and kind of see like 25 to 30 fantasy points. So I think he's a guy under 4K in the right circumstances that could get you to 30 DraftKings points. Certainly not a cash play, but a guy I like as a really low owned tournament play, a guy where kind of a situation where I really like his talent. I like where his usage is trending, and I think his minutes could trend up in the matchup. Clint Capella, always worth mentioning, but like I said, there's just a lot of center plays below his price point that I really like, so I'm not going to look at him in cash at all. I could see it in a tournament stack, but I'm just not too interested in him tonight. I'm going to move on to the next game, which looks like it is the Indiana Pacers traveling to visit the Phoenix Suns. Pacers are 4.5 point favorites. Totals at 217.5. This is a really interesting game. Phoenix has been the second most targetable team on any given night to the Brooklyn Nets. They played a really fast pace, 104 possessions per 48 minutes, 106.6 defensive rating. They actually have a 111 defensive rating over the last 5 games, even though Tyson Chandler's been back and playing. So they're just really fantasy friendly. The only thing you ever got to worry about them with is getting blown out, and I don't think that Indiana's good enough to blow anybody out right now, even though we've kind of seen them show up just in random matchups. But let's hope that Phoenix stays in this game, because I really want to target the Indiana guys tonight. Not over the last 2 games, Indiana's played really, really poor defense. They were really bad on defense earlier in the year. But over the last 2, they played the Clippers and Warriors, so I don't know if that's an accurate estimation of where they're actually at defensively right now. Phoenix is obviously not the offensive team that those 2 teams are, so I think they could play a little bit better. They've kind of flashed like 85 to 90 defensive ratings in certain games this year, so I don't know what to expect with them. But I'm gonna assume that they at least let Phoenix score enough points in this matchup to keep it close, and they have to play into the fourth quarter to close it out. If that is going to be the case, I love Paul George tonight. Paul George is really cheap across the industry. He is only 7.8K on DraftKings. I think he's giving you like a 35 to 40 point floor with 55-ish point ceiling. You have to worry about his usage. It's only been 23 over the last 2 games, but like I said, they kind of weren't in those games, so he's maybe taking it a little bit easy. I think he only played like 34 and 31 minutes. I think he could trend up towards 37 or 38 minutes in this game and kind of go from 23% usage up to maybe 27 to 28%. So I definitely like his floor ceiling combo. There's a couple other small forwards I want to pay for. I'm not sure how the cash game construction is going to work out for me yet tonight, but he's definitely a guy that's on my radar. Somebody I want to look to get in if I can, and definitely a guy I want tournament exposure to with this kind of ceiling. Especially in a game stack, bringing it back with somebody else from the other end, which is always going to be Bledsoe for me. It's tough to tell right now, but we'll get there. Next guy to look at for the Pacers is going to be Jeff Teague. Kind of same deal with him. Seen a 23.4% usage rate over the last 2, identical with Paul's. But I think these 2 guys are the go-to guys when they're trying to close out a game. I don't mind Teague's matchup. He's had pretty tough matchups the last 2 individually with the Clippers and then generally against Golden State. He actually got over a DraftKings point per minute against Golden State. Think it's pretty reasonable to expect him to be over a point per minute here in this matchup, and I think he could even trend up to like 1.3, 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. So if he plays like 36 minutes in a tight game here, like the matchup, think he can get you like 50 to 55 point ceiling too. I don't know about playing both him and Paul George because I don't know if both of them are going to trend up to like 28% usage at the same time. So I think maybe they aren't the best stack together in a game stack here. I think you maybe want to get ownership of both of them in tournaments. I think they're both reasonable cash targets. They both have pretty good matchups, but I think if I had to pick one, it's going to be Paul George. I think he's the alpha dog on this team. I think he'll have the ball in his hands when it comes down to crunch time, if it comes down to crunch time. But again, we're going to cap this assuming that it will. So I think Teague and Paul George, both reasonable cash and/or tournament targets. Thad Young has been 3rd on the team at a 22.1% usage rate over the last 2. He's only 5K on DraftKings. I can't deal with this floor in cash games. Reasonable tournament target. I'm not going to do it. I just think there's better plays out there. Rodney Stuckey's an interesting punt. He's seeing 18.8% usage off the bench. Projects to see probably like 22 to 25 minutes in this game. I think he could get you like 20 to 25 points. Not sure I want to do it in cash. There's some pretty serious value opening up elsewhere, but I could see it as a punt in tournaments. I love Miles Turner from an individual talent standpoint, but I can't play him right now. He just is disengaged way too often on the court. I can't trust him to produce, but if you want to play him just to kind of get a piece of this game, I can understand that. So it's pretty much Paul George and then Jeff Teague for me. I could see playing Thad, Stuckey, or I guess Miles Turner. I don't want any piece of Monta Ellis. His usage is way too low on the season. He needs a bunch of guys out to kind of trend up, and there's just way too many shooting guard plays that I'm interested in to take a chance on Monta Ellis in cash or tournaments. Don't care what his price is. Bring it back on the other side. It's always going to be Eric Bledsoe for me. It's not always going to be Eric Bledsoe for Earl Watson. This is just one of the most frustrating things all year, with his minutes kind of bouncing anywhere from 25 to 40. He's always an awesome cash game or tournament target because if he sees 36 to 40 minutes, he's usually going to be really efficient because he is a good offensive player. So I think he's a really viable tournament target as a stack with either Paul George, I guess, and/or Jeff Teague in this matchup. Can't trust him in cash, just way too low of a floor. But I like the matchup for sure. Again, not sure exactly what to expect from Indiana, but if I had to guess, I would expect them to give up some points in this matchup. Not really interested in anybody else on the Phoenix side because they're just so unpredictable from night to night. I guess Chandler is worth mentioning because Indiana is just so soft at the rim. Only 47.1% rebounding rate. Miles Turner hates rebounding. Just not a guy that's going to mix it up in the paint. Thad, not really a guy that you got to worry about getting onto the boards here. Another thing, actually, that I think ticks Paul George's usage up a little bit. I think he might have to carry a little bit extra rebounding load in this game. But so yeah, I think that Phoenix could kind of get over at the rim, but it's just, where are the minutes going to be for either of these guys? Talking about Tyson Chandler, Alex Len. I think I'd probably just rather take a shot in the dark at Alex Len, assuming that Indiana goes ahead here and Phoenix needs to score to get back into the matchup. Alex is obviously the more talented offensive player, and if he can protect the rim well and rebound well, which I think he could in this matchup, I think he could see his minutes trend up in a little bit to kind of chase Indiana down from behind. So I guess Len would probably be the second guy I would target behind Bledsoe in this matchup. But again, I think it's pretty thin. I think there's going to be better plays elsewhere. I can't play Devin Booker. I love Devin Booker's talent. Never know where his minutes or usage are going to be on any given night. I think Jared Dudley is kind of interesting at 3.4K. Played well earlier in the year against Indiana. He's a guy that can get over in a good matchup, but he needs to be matched up at the 4. He can't play the 3. He needs to be matched up at the 4 with a guy that's not huge and or athletic because Dudley is so slow and kind of small at the 4. But that is maybe a guy he could stick on the floor with. And, I mean, he can be productive when he sees minutes. And I think this is a matchup where he could possibly see minutes. I'm probably not going to play him, but I think he's given you a legitimate 30-point DraftKings ceiling if he would play 26 minutes, which I think is in the range of outcomes. Don't think it's a strong enough play that I'll actually go there, but Jared Dudley is my boy, and I gotta mention him anytime I can. No, I'm not playing. I never play PJ Tucker. He's a threat to really not put up a shot attempt on any given night. I'm not playing Brandon Knight. Brandon Knight's always kind of a reasonable tournament target just because his salary stays so low, and if he should get hot, he'll come out and chuck up a bunch of shots. I guess you could play him in a game stack. If you wanted to fade Bledsoe, play Knight instead and then bring it back with Paul George and or Jeff Teague. I could see that being a reasonable play, but not a guy I'm targeting heavily in or on tonight's slate. Gonna move on here to the next game. We've got the Portland Trail Blazers visiting the Milwaukee Bucks. Bucks are 1.5 point favorites here at home. Total is 214.5. This is another one of my favorite games to target tonight. I think this game has sneaky shootout potential. Certainly has potential within the range of outcomes to come in as the highest scoring game on the night. We've got a nice tight spread. Milwaukee's been pretty good defensively, but always love targeting the Portland Trail Blazers. I hope I didn't just X out of the stream. Got to get it back up here real quickly. Sorry guys, hang on one second. Okay. All right, so the Portland Trail Blazers and Milwaukee Bucks. Portland is horrible on defense, worst defensive team in the league, actually 109.6 defensive rating. No reason to think they're going to be any better tonight. Their pace has really trended up. They started around 98, 99 to begin the season. Now they're up around 101. Milwaukee's playing a little bit faster recently. They're only 99 pace on the season, but they've been at a 101 pace over the last 5. So that's certainly trending in a fantasy-friendly direction. The one thing I am a little bit worried about here is the fact that Milwaukee has been actually the best defensive team in the league over the last 5, only giving up 95.5 points per 100 possessions. I still think that Portland is a good enough offensive team to score on them, but that's just a little concerning. Portland is scoring 108 points per 100 possessions on the season. I mean, they're just a really fantasy-friendly team. They get buckets, they give them up, they get up and down the floor. They don't rebound well, so they allow you extra possessions and everything. So I'm really, really interested in targeting Milwaukee guys here, and we always know who it's going to be on Milwaukee's side of the ball. Giannis Antetokounmpo's got a 27.6% usage rate over the last 5 and a 68 true shooting percentage, which is crazy because he's not hitting jump shots at all. If Giannis ever gets his jump shot to fall, he's going to produce some insane stealing games. But even so, he's going to get to the rim. They have nobody to stop him at the rim on the perimeter, so he's going to drive by and get to the rim pretty much anytime he wants. I'm not worried about Mason Plumlee as a rim protector. Al-Farouq Aminu, they could throw at him, but he's coming off a long injury, and he's probably going to come off the bench again here. I think Giannis has a really, really nice floor-ceiling combo in this matchup. He's a guy that I'm looking to jam into all of my lineups because I think he probably projects to play like 38 to 40 minutes in this game because I think it's going to be close. Anytime it's close, he plays a bunch as long as he can stay away from fouls. And I think his efficiency is just going to be off the charts tonight as far as points per minute go. If he plays a bunch of minutes, I think he's giving you like a 50 to 55 point DraftKings point floor. I think he's got like a 70 to 80 point ceiling in this game. And I want to get a piece of that floor ceiling combo on most of my rosters. I'm really, really high on Giannis tonight. I just think every single thing that could point to him having a big game is kind of coming together here. So really interested in him. Cash and/or tournaments, both sites. Next two guys to look at are Jabari Parker. Usually going to be anywhere from like 23 to 28 usage on any given night. Certainly like the matchup for him. Think he could get over here. Think he's a cash or tournament target. Both sites. Don't have any of him on my rosters right now. I think just because of his price point. But like I said, I'm really into him and all of the Milwaukee main guys in this game. I think this game is like full stackable. I think you could play Giannis. I think you could play Jabari. I think you could play John Henson as well. I really like Henson in this matchup. Portland's terrible at the rim. Like Mason Plumlee as like a facilitator, but I don't like him protecting the rim as much. Portland is one of the worst rebounding teams in the league, only 48% rebounding rate on the year. Milwaukee is 50.5% rebounding rate, but since Henson has kind of taken over that starting center job, they're 52.5 rebounding rate. I really like Henson in this matchup. If he's going to see 25 to 28 minutes, I think he can get over a DraftKings point per minute. I think he's a reasonable expectation for a double-double with maybe a couple defensive statistics. I'm not 100% sold on the rotations here. There's certainly a possibility that he will like have his minutes cut and Greg Monroe goes out there and plays a bunch, but I'm pretty comfortable with it. Comfortable enough to run him out in cash games. I think he's a really strong cash and/or tournament target. He is so cheap on FanDuel. He's only 4.7K on FanDuel. He opens up a lot, and I think his floor projection is almost like right at value. So I think he's a really strong play on FanDuel. I think he's a pretty strong play on DraftKings. Definitely a guy that I'm going to look to have on my rosters as well tonight. So again, really interested in Giannis, Jabari Parker, and Henson. Monroe is a guy that you can kind of look at. His minutes and shots are trending up a little bit here. But again, definitely not a cash target, but somebody that can give you 30 to 35 DraftKings points at only 4.1K. So he's somebody that you could play, especially as a nice pivot off of Henson. Somebody to play like Giannis and Greg Monroe and then bring it back on the other side. I'm not too interested in Beasley or Brogdon in this game because I think this game should stay pretty close. So I think the starters should get plenty of run here. Moving on to the other side of the ball, Like I said, I'm not in love with targeting Portland's guys, especially in cash games, because of the prices and because I'm a little concerned with Milwaukee's defense. I mean, they have so much length, and now that they're playing Henson at the rim, they have some legit rim protection. But we know that CJ and Damian Lillard can get off in any matchup because they're such good jump shooters, and I love targeting jump shooters in tournaments. So I like both of them in tournament games. I think I would lean towards CJ in a cash game just because he's so much cheaper. There's a little less risk there. Can't see playing Damian Lillard at the price in cash. I think I would much rather just go to like Chris Paul in the same price point. But I definitely think he's a very viable stack in tournaments with Giannis and or, like I said, Henson, Jabari, or Monroe. He certainly has like a 60 to 65 point DraftKings ceiling in this matchup. Like I said, I don't love him coming in towards the higher end, but I think it is certainly within the range of outcomes. So I think he's a tournament target here. CJ a stronger play for me. Probably not the strongest cash game play at shooting guard. We'll touch on a couple other guys. Already mentioned Barton. I think I played Barton over him in cash game, but I think he's viable on the slate. Mo Harkless, I don't think takes a huge bump with Aminu coming back. Aminu's probably going to come off the bench again tonight. He's a reasonable target in cash games. Probably going to look elsewhere in tournaments. I don't know that he's giving me like this 40-point ceiling that I would want from somebody at his price point with Aminu back. But like I said, I don't think Aminu dings him too much, but maybe just enough that I want to play him in tournaments. But like him a little bit, I guess. And I think if he fit into your cash game roster, you could certainly go with him. Not really interested in Plumlee on today's slate. Too expensive with all the other really good center plays. I'd sooner go to Henson on the other side of the ball here. Same thing with Aminu. Not going to trust his minutes or shot attempts coming back from an injury. I'm going to have to see it first. Evan Turner, I missed those couple games that he had that were good. I think now with Alan Crabb taking shots, Aminu taking shots in minutes off the bench, just not interested in him at all. Speaking of not interested in him, he's pretty cheap, and he can kind of get it going on any given night. So if he comes out and attempts could trend up a little bit, but I'm just not willing to bet on it. But I could see it maybe in just a really, really low owned off the wall game stat. Really love Giannis and Jabari in that from Milwaukee for cash games. Not looking for any cash game plays from Portland, but I think CJ and Damian are the strong stacks in a tournament stack for this game. Moving on to the next game on the slate. We've got the Knicks on the road in the Garden. Total is 214. Bunch of to cover in this game. We've got being he has a full. This building is to the game of basketball. The game of basketball is old. There's a lot of history here, so get his situation. I think it's easy why he wants to come out and put on a show. He comes to the Garden. Love the matchup. Nobody's going to stop him. Justin Holiday, not too worried about him. Certainly love LeBron in any kind of one-on-one matchups. Also have the narrative of Phil Jackson. Said something about his posse or something like that. So you could possibly have to come out here and have a good game of those two things. We also have the fact that LeBron and the Cavs had that kind of tough stretch for a couple of games where they were really, really out of sync. And the last two games, one of which was a win, LeBron has come out and been really aggressive. He has seen, I think it was 30.8% usage in the last two games, which is up from his season average. I think I really want to play LeBron tonight. I think he's a good cash and or tournament target. It's hard to get him in. He's not too expensive, especially on FanDuel. Is a lot easier to fit him in. DraftKings, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to go there because I could save $2,000 and go down to Paul George, but I think LeBron's probably giving you a better floor ceiling combination in this game. I think it's reasonable to want to play them both. But I'm really expecting LeBron to come in towards the upper range of his outcomes tonight, and we know what kind of ceiling he's going to give us. Certainly a 30-point game, triple-double, couple defensive statistics is within his range. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw it tonight. J.R. Smith is going to be out of this game, so DeAndre Liggins is going to be starting, I'm assuming. Just a couple extra shots to go around for the big three. Can't really target anybody else from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Next guy to look at is probably going to be Love. Kevin Love's usage has been a little lower these last couple games with LeBron taking more shots. I think that could trend back up here. And even if Love's usage goes down a little bit, he usually makes up for it with the fact that he takes high efficiency shots, shoots a ton of 3-pointers, gets to the line at a reasonable efficiency. So he's not really, even if he's seeing a couple less shots, he can still score enough to offset the downtick in volume. And we always know that he's going to be a rebounder. Don't love the matchup with Kristaps. Kristaps has been amazing on the defensive end. So I'm probably not going to play him in cash. I think he's a reasonable tournament target. Rather have LeBron in this matchup. Kyrie, same kind of thing. Don't know what to expect from him here. I'm assuming Brandon Jennings is going to start for the Knicks. Don't have any confirmation on that. I'm probably going to go cheaper or more expensive from Kyrie in my cash games. I'm going to get up to Giannis, or I'm going to come down to like Jennings or something like that. But I think he's got a crazy ceiling in this game. If the Knicks can score enough to stay close, this game could have like 100 or 235, 240 points scored. Certainly in play to be the highest scoring game on the night. So I think Kyrie's definitely a guy you want to at least sprinkle in some tournaments. I think he could score 40 real points with a handful of assists in this game. I think it gets you to 50, 55 DraftKings points if everything would shake out his way. But the main target from Cleveland is definitely LeBron. I want LeBron in my cash games tonight just because I think everything is kind of pointing in this direction. Same kind of thing as on both because I think there's just too many things pointing towards them coming in close to their ceilings. That I want to get them in and get a piece of that. Channing Frye, also worth mentioning anytime that LeBron's going to play. I think that Frye could play some 5 here too. I think Love and or Frye could see some minutes at the 5 in this matchup. I'm definitely not on Tristan Thompson. Frye is certainly not a cash game play, but somebody that gives you like 30 to 35 point DraftKings point ceiling any game, because he can come out and hit 6 or 7 3-pointers, rebound the ball a little bit, and give you a couple defensive stats. So I think he's a reasonable play, especially in a game stack with LeBron, because LeBron and him run that pick and roll so often that if you have both of them and LeBron's kind of feeding him on the pick and roll and he's hitting 3-pointers, you're getting 5 points every single time that happens. So I think that's a reasonable tournament stack, especially in a game stack here. So LeBron in cash, probably won't play anybody else from the Cavs in cash. I also like LeBron tournaments. I think Kyrie's a better tournament play than Love. Still think Love's in play for tournaments. And I think Channing Frye is certainly a tournament play as well. Bringing it back onto the other side of the ball with the Knicks, like I mentioned, I'm pretty sure that Derrick Rose is going to sit out of this game. He had back spasms last game. That's usually a more of a muscular thing, and a muscular thing like that is not going to go away overnight. So would expect him to get some rest here, and we certainly know that Derrick Rose is not afraid to rest his body and act in his own self-interest, which I have no problem with. Don't want to throw any shade there. So I'm expecting Brandon Jennings to play at 4K on DraftKings in this matchup with Kyrie, who loves getting buckets but loves getting them up, giving them up himself. I think he's probably going to be a really strong cash play. I think he's going to be really heavily owned. I think he's at least worth a block in cash to save the salary owned, and I think he's probably going to give you like a 40-point ceiling here and maybe like a 20 to 25 point floor if he's going to see 30 plus minutes in this matchup. So cash games if Rose is out just to save the salary and, like I said, kind of block everybody else in case that he would go trend towards his ceiling, which, like I said, I think could happen here with the matchup against Kyrie. So I think he's in play for cash or tournaments. Carmelo saw a 35% usage rate last night, kind of touched on that in the video cast last night, how he was going to have an awesome individual matchup with either Magruder or Wayne Ellington, whoever they were going to try to check him with. So his usage definitely trended up. I would expect it to trend down tonight. LeBron is not the same kind of matchup for him. He's not going to get off as easily. I wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of take a couple ego heat checks in this game that don't go in, which kind of bothers me a little bit. I would, from just an efficiency standpoint, hope that he would kind of pass the ball a little bit more and do a little bit more facilitating, but I can't trust him to do that in this matchup. So I'm not on him at all. I'm not going to play him in cash or tournaments. I'll go elsewhere at small forward for sure. But what this does do for me is if Rose is going to be out, I don't think Jennings is going to have the same kind of 25-ish% usage rate that Rose saw. Jennings is usually closer to like 20 to 22. Hoping he stays down in the 20% usage. Hoping that Melo comes down from that 35 towards maybe like a 26 to 28% usage here. And then that should finally get Kristaps up into the 30 usage plus that he should be seeing every single night because he is their best offensive player. He's only been at 22.5 usage the last three. That's always the concern with him, that he's not going to see the shot attempts. Love the matchup with Kevin Love. Kevin Love is too small to really do anything to Kristaps. Certainly not fleet of foot enough either. I mean, Kristaps is kind of attacking Kristaps is just the man. I've always loved Kristaps. It's only getting worse. I mean, he's such a good player. He does everything on the court. He's got 15 blocks over the last 5 games. So he's giving you defensive statistics. He's a really efficient scorer. If he can see the shot attempts here tonight, which, like I said, I think there's reason to expect that he will, with Melo being a bit limited by LeBron and Rose probably not playing. I think he can see 38 to 40 minutes if this game stays tight. Think he can give you a double-double. He's been pretty good on the boards as well. So I think he can give you like 25, 12, 2 or 3 blocks, a steal, and a bunch of threes. I mean, I just think that he has probably a 55 to 60 point DraftKings point ceiling. His floor is low, probably like 30 to 33 because we never know if the shot attempts are going to be there. But like I said, I'm willing to bet that he comes in closer to the ceiling in this matchup. Probably not going to play him in cash because, like I said, I want to target Millsap tonight, who we haven't gotten to yet. But I think he's an awesome tournament stack with LeBron. I want to play Kristaps. I want to play LeBron in tournament stack. I want to play Jennings. Maybe want to bring it back with Fry, something like that. I think those 4 guys are like an awesome tournament stack, giving you a really, really crazy ceiling for their price points. And then obviously you could, kind of fill it out from there. So if I'm playing anybody in cash from New York, it's definitely going to be Brandon Jennings. Second would probably be Kristaps Porzingis. I don't want any piece of Melo. And actually, a guy I want to mention too is Kyle O'Quinn. Kyle O'Quinn is kind of trending upwards here. I've always loved Kyle O'Quinn. I thought Kyle O'Quinn was really good when he was with the Magic. We saw some really, really efficient performances there. It looks like his minutes might trend up a little bit because Joakim Noah he just can't be on the floor more than like 15 minutes anymore. They can't do it. They're terrible defensively with him out there. O'Quinn gives them a better chance to compete, and hopefully Hornacek realizes that and is going to give him the minutes. I don't know that I can trust Kyle O'Quinn in cash, but I think he's a really good tournament target. I think he's giving you like 35-ish point ceiling here at 3.9K. He rebounds, he plays defense, he scores, he can shoot it a little bit. I've seen him step out and hit some threes. It can happen. He can shoot the ball from range. So I like him in this matchup. Like I said, don't trust him in cash, but I think you can get him into a game stack for sure. So definitely got that I think deserves a look here on this slate. Let's move on to the next game. Looks like it's going to be the Detroit Pistons visiting the Charlotte Hornets. Hornets are 6-point favorites. Total's 202. I'm probably not going to spend a whole lot of time on the rest of these games because we spent so much time on the games that kind of, I think, matter more. I'm I'm pretty much off of anybody on Charlotte's side of the ball. I don't want to target Detroit at all right now. Detroit's been pretty good defensively all year, pretty slow pace, pretty good on the boards. They kind of limit your possessions. Just not a really fantasy-friendly team. If I'm playing anybody from Charlotte, it's probably going to be Nick Batum, just because I think he can kind of get over in a really kind of gross matchup like this. He can give you 15 points, 10 boards, 8 assists, a couple defensive statistics. Probably won't be owned. If I'm playing anybody, it's going to be him. Not too interested in Kemba. On the other side of the ball, I do like Tobias, especially on FanDuel. He's super cheap on FanDuel. I think he's like 5.6K. That is really, really low for him. He's got an awesome individual matchup with Frank Kaminsky. He dominated Frank Kaminsky in their last matchup. I don't think anything has changed there. I think we can expect that again. So I like Tobias a lot. Probably my favorite target from the Detroit side of the ball. We're not sure if Reggie Jackson is going to play here. Ish Smith is sort of interesting. Probably wouldn't ever trust him in cash, but I definitely think he's a tournament target. He's played pretty good basketball here. Kind of knows his role, gets up easy shots, and passes the ball to the open guy. Again, I'm probably playing like Marcus Smart, Brandon Jennings, all those kinds of guys over him in cash, but I guess he's an interesting pivot. Andre Drummond, not really a guy I ever play. This is a good matchup for him. I don't really like Charlotte that much at the rim. I'm not worried about Cody Zeller, Spencer Hawes, whoever else they're going to run out there. Drummond's always carrying a nice ceiling. His floor is also too low with the fouls, and I've mentioned many times I think he can just kind of lose focus out there. So I'm not going to play him in cash. I could see him as a tournament target. I think Tobias is the strongest play here. I think Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a reasonable play. He's always locked into minutes in the upper 30s. This game should be reasonably close. I actually like Detroit in this game. I think Detroit covers the 6 here. I think they're playing a little bit better than Charlotte is right now. So I think that Kentavious could see 36 to 38 minutes. I think you could pay off the price tag. Like I've touched on, though, there's just shooting guards that I'm looking for, but his ownership should be low. So he's definitely a interesting tournament play, I guess. Marcus Morris, same kind of thing. Don't want to play him. Small forward is way too stacked for me tonight, even though I could see him coming in closer to the ceiling. So it's going to be Tobias, if anyone, from this game for me in cash. I think Batum and Tobias is a reasonable stack. Those are my 2 favorite plays here. Let's see, moving on to the next game. We've got the Miami Heat traveling to visit the Atlanta Hawks. Hawks are 8.5-point favorites. Totals at 201. I've mentioned Paul Millsap a couple of times. He is way underpriced coming off the injury. 7.1K on Draftkings. I think he's giving you a floor of like 36, 38, maybe even like 40 Draftkings points, which is really, really going to get you there. I think he's giving you like a 60-point ceiling in this matchup too. I love the individual matchup with McRoberts or Derek Williams, whoever they put out there. I like that Kent Bazemore isn't playing in this game. He sees Paul Millsap sees a 2% usage increase without Bazemore out there. I think Millsap makes the most sense as the easiest way for Atlanta to get offense going in this matchup. He's got the easiest individual matchup. He's really good off the bounce. I mean, you can get it to him in the post. You can get it to him in pick and rolls. He can run the pick and roll. He can pick a pot. He should be really involved in this game. He can give you, I think he's a really, really strong candidate for a double-double here. I think he's going to give you 4 or 5 assists. I think he can give you 3-4 defensive statistics. I think he could score 25 plus real points. I'm just really into him in this game. He's a guy I want to get into all of my cash games. I think he's giving you plenty of ceiling for tournaments as well. Next guy I would target from the Hawks. It's going to be either Dwight or Schroeder. I hate Schroeder. If you followed along, you know that better point guard plays tonight. I can't deal more. The ceiling is not enough there, especially with Millsap in the lineup, that I'm going to take that risk. I'd rather play many cheap centers that I like a lot better than him. Usage rate up last game was at 25 to 30% usage. I think we can expect him dual matchup with Schroeder. Schroeder is just, he's so bad. I mean, he is horrible in the pick and roll coverage. I mean, he falls asleep. Goran Dragic again as a cash and balance. I definitely think he's a guy you should roll into your cash game lineup. He can shoot, he can rebound a little bit, he can pass, and he is one of these guys. So I don't mind targeting him individually. I don't know that I'm going to fade him completely and torn cash target. Pay all the way up to 9 point Hawks have been pretty good, as much rebounding success. Dragic as cash plays from this game. I think this game's going to stay pretty close. I would expect Miami to cover the 8.5 here plus points right now. And Miami's at home. Another thing to mention, this is a pace-up game for Miami, so just enough they could get off plenty of extra possessions. Atlanta is, and Dragic has no in the shot clock if they're there, so. And I think it's a stackable game on Sacramento's side of the ball. I think he's going to give you anywhere from like 30 to 45. I said he's got 45. 40 been playing well. Usage is up. Well, I don't need to be targeting Collison with him. And there's just way better shooting guard plays. So it's 40 plus usage in this matchup. It's just, there's nobody to guard him. Salah Mejri is not guarding him. Dwight Powell is not at usage rate. I think it only goes up from there. I don't think it's going to be less than that. You always got to worry about foul trouble with him, but like low ownership. Good favorites at the Orlando Magic. Total is 195.5. We've seen Orlando just be really, really good on defense here recently. But Isaiah Thomas, Avery Bradley in this spot. Really like Marcus Smart. I think I'm gonna pretty much lock right off the bat. Marcus Smart's like locked and loaded in your cash games. Don't think you need to over. So I think he's a really, really strong play. I think Avery Bradley is a really strong play. Horford's a really strong play. I think he could be a little more involved. Orlando at the rim. They're really strong at the rim, but that's not really Horford's game. Horford plays away from the rim better. He's a pretty strong. He's carrying a pretty nice D5 most nights, and then on the floor, and Isaiah Thomas off of it. So I think it's kind of a lineup that are one. Marcus Smart's probably the guy that I might go away from. But man, I really like Avery Bradley a lot in this game. He's going to play a ton for like a 20 and 10, 4 assists, 2 steal line. That's obviously going to get the same thing with Jay Crowder. I think he can give you 20 points, 20 real points. But I'll take him down just because I think small forward is so. Be Smart, Bradley, and Crowder a little bit because their positions are so much stronger. But I think all 4 of them are really good cash plays. I'm going to target the Boston Celtics at the rim. Saw Bismack beyond. Scoring production was a little bit fluky. Back from a bunch of times, send him to the free throws in a game. Throw him up, prayer, hook shot. I think he's going to score 10 points in this matchup, but Bucks score actually like 4 or 6 points. I think he's at Draftkings point floor, and that basically pays it last night. I'll probably have some ownership of him. I think it's a reasonable enough spot. I just don't think he's going to score 40 Draftkings points again in cash games. I think Henson gives you a little bit better. Mac does, but like I said, I definitely like him in this matchup. He just couldn't miss a shot. He got to pick on the really poor Wizards guards off the bench. Doesn't get to do that. Should match up more often with like Marcus Smart. Maybe he gets to see Terry Rozier. I'm not interested, but I'm not gonna. Vucevic just didn't see any shots in the first half because Alfred Payton was on fire, and he's set himself up to 35 DraftKings points at the end of the day. So he's a great tournament target. I want to have access to in tournaments point floor. I don't think anybody's going to play him because he kind of went under the radar yesterday. Biyombo and Vucevic, the most